Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 11 o'clock, and I think we are live. So I am going to be with you for an hour, about an hour. It is 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, in case you are watching this from somewhere else at some other time and you're wondering when we did it and when you can join us. Until we can open our doors again and gather in groups, we are going to continue with online offerings. Oh, look over here. I have my have my glasses ready for today. Rose-colored glasses, that's what I'm known for. And I have to admit, I was supposed to be in Mexico right now, leading a deep, inspiring retreat, but that didn't happen for some obvious reasons. So I'm going to do my best to hang out with you like this. Now, you can ask questions, which is something very specific to the Thursday offering that we're going to do. On Sundays at 10:30 Mountain Time, we're going to be doing meditation, a prayer, a message, and then a short bit of time for questions. But today, my goal is to talk for about 30 minutes at the most. We're going to start off with a little centering exercise, a poem probably, and then we're going to dive into talking about some of the sort of stay-at-home tips from a holistic perspective, also a spiritual perspective, of course, how to stay healthy and well. So I'm probably going to take off my rose-colored glasses in a minute. I've got my tablet, brand not disclosed, and I will look here and see if I can get a test message from Susan, Susan Stites is our general manager and will be our moderator today. So let's hope that she checks in with me soon, and you guys can start sending questions once we get into the main content. So if you're out there, let's get going. As it is with all good things, we start by slowing down. I'm going to take these off. Oh my gosh, I think I look much better with them on. So wherever you are, let's sit comfortably but alert. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. If it helps, you can put your hand on your chest and your belly. So you want to have one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. The hand on your chest is to help you remember to be connected to your heart. And the hand on your belly is to remember to breathe down and deep, which means when you're breathing in, anytime you're stressed out or wanting to slow down, you're not puffing up your chest, you're not raising your shoulders. That is the opposite of a relaxing breath. So let's do this together now. In through the nose, down into the belly. If you can, pushing that hand that's on the belly out. And then a long exhale. And I'm going to encourage you to really focus on the extended exhale. And you're breathing out until your stomach muscles contract. And as you do this, feel your body soften. Feel your awareness drop. Your mind is slowing down. Your emotions are not quite so distracting. And you're entering into stillness. And you may notice that the mind is still chattering a little, that there may still be some emotions moving around and through you, and that's all fine. But you want to focus your attention, your awareness, solely on the breath and the sensation of descending into stillness. And no matter what is going on around you or within you, you can always find the still place. It is in this stillness that we are connected right now. You and I, wherever you are, we are all united in the silence that we carry deep within. We are all united in the silence that gave birth to all life and this world. And if you are ever in distress, use your breath to slow down and move down from the mind through the opening heart and into your silent root. When you connect with that stillness, know that this is the place where all beings dwell, all things are contained in this stillness. When you connect with this stillness, you know that the word alone means all one. When I am alone, I can truly feel all one. And so we are together with all of our favorite people and places. Here with this connection to the stillness, we are near the ocean, the high mountains, the wide deserts. Here we find friends and family. Here we find butterflies and elephants. Here we hold entire countries. Here in our stillness, in the blossoming heart, we hold all of Italy. We hold the Antarctic. We hold Uruguay and Egypt. Whether we know it or not, or remember it day to day, inside us is the silent root that we all share. And more than remembering our place in the family of life, we find this root is a source of love and wisdom. For the longer we hold the stillness inside ourselves, the closer we come to the moment in which the stillness begins to hold us, speak to us, love us, and energize us like leaves on a great tree, each one of us fed by the strong branches, the great trunk, and the mighty root. We are precious, we are connected, and we all will come and go with time. But our life feeds our source, just as our source makes our life possible. And when our life leaves this form, it falls to the root and returns to the source again. Feel yourself as that green, growing expression of life. There is no stuckness when you remember your root. There is no isolation, no fear, no aloneness when we are connected to the root of life. Then all of life is with us. Before we finish, taking a moment to connect with your heart, the image, the feeling, the idea, a beautiful light opening inside you. And imagine that you can share it with each and everyone watching. That even just by feeling this love in yourself, it moves from the leaf through the branch, the trunk of this mighty tree, and to the root. We share one love throughout existence. So, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And, I was thinking about this Kabir poem this morning as I was thinking about just how difficult this time must be for some people, because too many of us are convinced of the illusions of our life and the idea that what we see is ultimately real, and that things that are temporary are more important than things that are eternal. So of course we get attached to places, we get attached to the routines of our life, we get attached to the habits of body and mind, and of course there's a whole lot of stuff that we like. And when it gets stripped away, we have a couple of options, and one is to go after it, to cling, to grab, to wish for more, to regret its loss, and to be in that struggle with what is. On the other hand, we can also release, we can relax, we can observe, and be mindful, be intentional about the experience of letting go. What is the experience of having piece after piece after piece of your life taken away? And what are you left with? And this is the great question that many of us will be faced with, and many of us will be pleased with, blessed by, which is that the more you release, the more you let go, the more you discover the truth of who you are, and that the essence of who you are can never be taken away from you. Anything that can be taken from you is not you. Anything that can be taken away from you is not really you. And we're actually going to explore that more on Sunday. So I'm going to pull up this poem I wanted to read for you. And let's see where we're at. So the great mystic Kabir wrote around the 13th century. He was, if I remember correctly, he was both Sufi and Hindu. Like many of the mystics, as they awaken to the great truths and the great experience of the unitive nature of our reality, religion ceases to make much sense at all. And so they either forsake it or they embrace all paths and all traditions and find the trail within that leads to the one. If you like, it might help to close your eyes and just receive this poem as he writes, as though the words of the divine. Are you looking for me? I am the empty seat beside you. I am the person seated next to you on the train. My shoulder is against yours. You will not find me in the stupas, not in Indian shrine rooms, nor in synagogues, nor in cathedrals, not in masses, nor kirtans, not in legs winding around your own neck, nor in eating nothing but vegetables. When you really look for me, you will see me instantly. You will find me in the tiniest houses of time. The mystic says, "Student, tell me, what is God?" God is the breath inside the breath. Again, this was by Kabir. And many of you today will have a lot of time for reading. Some of you, like me, actually have quite a bit of work that naturally occurs online. So in many ways, I'm kind of as busy as ever. And of course, I'm also at home with my family. So that is exciting and fun, and also, of course, takes time. And so maybe I don't get to read quite as much as you do, but I'm encouraging you to take this time that we now have, many of us in quarantine or self-quarantine, to reflect, to listen, to read, to explore, and to develop a deep relationship with stillness and silence. I have to tell you that in my life, the greatest practices that I've ever been a part of, particularly in my case among Native people, have been the practices that very specifically create the kinds of conditions that people are being thrust into right now. No social contact, no shelter from the weather, no food, no journals, no books, no teachers, just presence, solitude, listening, watching, paying attention to life unfolding. And the gift that I personally experienced in those practices, and certainly with something like the Vision Quest, probably more than 14 over the years, what I discovered was that what I once thought of as being alone turned out to be anything but that. That in my sacred circle of solitude, what I felt was connected to all things and all being. That in the absence of books and teachers, what I thought would be boredom and emptiness instead was an overflowing of knowledge and wisdom in the life around me, literally breathing out of the plants, coming through the dance of dragonflies. Life is imbued with the love and wisdom of spirit. Solitude, simplicity, slowing down are the exact tools that we need to access that love and wisdom. And it's a practice. It's a technique. It's something you can work at. And the more you work at it, the more you will hear, the more you will feel, and the more you will know deep in your bones that the truth of who you are is untouchable, eternal, connected, beautiful, and always only a step or two away from joy, peace, and balance. But it's a process, and it takes time, and it takes some work, and most of us will never have the conditions. Well, let me rephrase that. There was a time where I thought that most of us would never have the conditions to actually practice such austerities. But as it turns out, millions of people right now are being invited by their governments, by their doctors, by their teachers, to do just that. Stay home and be with yourself. Be with the small microcosm of life that is in your home, and let it be enough. Don't long for a different day. Don't long for things to change. It's a waste. The only way around this is through. And the fastest way for life to move back to something like normal will be to fully embrace where we're at. A worldwide invitation to wake up to the presence of Spirit in all moments and all things. So, on that note, I'm going to send a little test message here to make sure I'm online with Susan. And then we're going to go through, I think it's 7 stay-at-home tips. I'll do that relatively quickly, and then you can start sending questions. Okay, here we go. This is all live. So, where's my, well, I don't have my list. I can't seem to find it. But, oh yeah, here it is. The first one is look good, feel good. So the subtext is get dressed for the day. Now, I'm hoping that this is a basic one that most of you have already figured out, but it's tempting, you know, when you're absolved of work or classes or community service or whatever you do to get out of the house, to essentially stay home and be in your pajamas or be in your sweats or be in bed. And certainly that's, you know, that's not a terrible thing sometimes, but I encourage you to make that more of a treat. You don't really want that to be your everyday way of life. Now, at a very basic biological, neurological level, your mind, your brain will be cued by getting dressed for the day to begin to be forward thinking, to feel energized, to feel some sense of self-respect and dignity. So I encourage you to dress. And some days, especially if you're stuck home alone, hey, some days you can put on a suit. Some days you can put on a dress. Some days you can walk around in a Batman costume that you've had from Halloween. There is no limit to, well, there are a few limits to what you can explore at home. And so I encourage you to be creative, to be positive, but most significantly on a regular basis, dignify your life, your energy, your home, and get dressed for the day. The second one is cleaning brings meaning. And that means keep your space clean. So for a lot of us, whether we are trapped with family or friends or again, by ourselves, this is a phenomenal opportunity to do your spring cleaning. And that means organize, tidy up, throw out all that you don't need. Look at that junk drawer and ask yourself what you can live without. Look at your clothing closet and find all those pieces of clothing you haven't touched in a year. Very soon, people will be needing these things all over the world. People who have lost work, people who can't go to work, people who have no savings. What is it you can do to take the trash and clutter out of your space now? I mean, in a weird way, when this finally passes, some of you are going to be filled with regret. Oh my gosh, I stayed home a month, 2 months. And my bedroom's still a mess. My closet's still full of boxes. My junk drawer is still full of junk. And I still have all these clothes that I never wear. Don't let that happen. As with anything in life, if life is presenting you with a challenge or a lesson, get it now so you don't have to get it again later. Now, there's all kinds of wonderful resources. If you have, obviously you have some kind of technology because you're watching this. So there's all kinds of great resources relating to the feng shui of a home, the magical power of tidying up by whatever that woman, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but she's an author from Japan, and she actually has a little special on Netflix, so I would certainly encourage that. And one thing I know about the tradition that she comes from is that you are to use the principle of joy and time to help sort things out. So if you're going through a drawer and you haven't touched something in, let's say, 6 months, that means that is in your pile to go. Now, if you can't let it go for some joyful reason or practical reason, like it's, a medical device that you need in emergencies, well, of course you don't get rid of it. But once you've separated out all the things that you don't need and don't bring you joy, then you can go through the ones that you have mixed feelings about. So I believe it's definite, uncertain, and keep. Those are 3 piles you can have. Keep it, sort it, and trash it or give it away. And again, your 2 sorting factors, or at least 2 to consider, are time. Like, have I ever worn this? Have I ever touched this? It might be valuable, but I never use it. And joy. When I engage this shirt, when I engage this deck of cards, when I engage this old lighter, does it bring me joy? And if you can't say yes to frequency and function or joy, you're done. Just don't even, And the beautiful thing for most people today is they have phones with cameras, and that means that if you're feeling a lot of regret giving something away, then you can just take a picture and let it go. All right, the next one is move it or lose it. So move it or lose it, of course, is about exercise. If you're at home, first of all, most people, not everyone, but most people can get outside to be in nature. Of course, you're going to practice social distancing, which means 6 feet between you and other people. But most people are aware of that right now, so you can get out for a walk. Now, even if your mobility is limited and you're with a walker or a wheelchair, if you can get outside and be under the sky, whether it's cloudy or blue, breathing in fresh air, taking in the world and all of its natural energies, that is still going to be better for you than not doing it at all. So maybe you can only get to the end of the street and back, but that's exercise for you, and that's meaningful. Staying at home and not moving is not really an option. One of the great exercises that has blossomed in our family is dancing. So yes, every day, at some point, there is definitely dancing. Now, not everyone feels like it every day, but some combination of the people in this household have the music rocking and we are dancing. As it turns out, dancing burns calories, supports flexibility, and in some cases even strength. So don't be shy, don't be afraid to get up and move and dance. As again, if you can get outside and run or walk safely and with respect for whatever environment you're in, do that. And if your mobility is limited, even if all you have in your home is 3 steps up and 3 steps down, you can do that. You can do that slowly up and slowly down. You can touch your toes. You can do push-ups. You can do sit-ups. You can run on the spot. There's probably 1,000 exercise videos out there for free that you can watch that will help you to do things at home. And I have tried some of them, and I'll tell you, I am far too out of shape to do half of what they're telling me, which tells me there's a lot to learn. The next one, number 4, is communicate with love. Renew connections. So if you have family members that you love and are connected with, send them a note every day. Even have a little list of people. I'm thinking of you. How's it going? It doesn't matter if it's complicated. Communication doesn't always have to be voluminous. Is that a word? No, it doesn't always have to be so full. But let people know that you're thinking of them. Let people know that you care. And it's also a wonderful time to consider sitting down and writing all those notes that all the healers and therapists have told you to write. Notes to people who have passed. notes to people who you've forgotten, notes to people who have been helpful to you. It's a wonderful time to sit down and write those letters. You can see this as an extraordinary time to reset, reboot, heal your relationship with the past. In this moment, you can communicate virtually, spiritually, and in many cases directly with everyone and anyone you've ever known. So take the time to communicate and let that be a part of your daily experience. Another one here, this is number 5, is go back to school. And so my advice is that, all of us, well, most of us have things that we're interested in. And in the back of our minds, we tell ourselves, well, I just don't have time to read about that or to study that or watch a video about that. But today, with things like YouTube and Facebook and obviously the internet, you can have absolutely any interest in the world and you can learn about it. So you can learn about, Cartesian philosophy. You can learn about probably underwater basket weaving, as we always used to say growing up. That was the kind of go-to example for something absurd. You can learn about traditional cultures. You can learn about architecture, design, marketing, fitness, wellness, nutrition. You could actually dedicate this next month to getting an online degree in some sort of a program online. There's tons of it. Even I'm offering courses online coming up this month and this next month. So find something that engages you. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be NASCAR. It can be the ocean. It can be coral reefs. But give yourself a topic and permission to study and let your mind be active and let yourself feel engaged with the greater world. Now, excuse me, I have to occasionally remove some of the junk that comes up on my screen. So pick a topic and study. The next one is practice makes perfect. So I truly believe that one of the greatest gifts of not being able to get out as much or being quarantined or self-quarantined if it is to take a spiritual practice and make a deeper commitment to it. One of the things I hear all the time in my work is that people say things like, well, I meditate, but kind of on the fly, like when I have time, sitting in the car, at the grocery store. I pray, but, not a formal practice, sort of like when I'm in the middle of work or when I'm having a hard time with my family or out for a walk. And to me, like, that's all nice, but that's not it's not really the kind of practice I'm talking about. I'm talking about something where you have a designated time, a designated format, and you sit down and with some discipline and love and commitment, you stick to whatever that practice is. And there's a value to having the same practice every day because it will not only connect you with the spiritual world, but it will teach you about yourself. So let's say your morning practice is 30 minutes of yoga, right? 30 minutes of sun salutations. Not a huge commitment. You're going to do it at 8 in the morning. You're going to do it at 5 o'clock at night. Just an example. Could be meditating for 15 minutes. Could be breathing exercises for 10 minutes. Could be reading the Quran or the Bible or sacred poetry for 5 minutes. Whatever it is, when you return to it consistently and daily, not only does it build the habit, the strength, the neurological predisposition to engage and re-engage, not only does it accelerate the shifting from the sympathetic to the from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, but it's going to teach you about yourself. If you do the same practice every day, particularly at the same time, you will learn about yourself in the most remarkable ways. Wow, when it's sunny, I'm energized. And when it's cloudy, I'm more energized than I thought. Wednesdays are always hard for me. Fridays are always easy. I have a lot of self-talk about my body. I have a lot of self-talk about my life. the value of the practice is more than the practice. It's that the practice becomes a context for other forms of discovery and learning. And of course, in an ideal moment, it becomes the foundation of spiritual experience. The last two are pretty straightforward. One is, there's no time like the present, so start new habits. That means if you were planning to go vegetarian over the last 5 years, now would be the time to do it. If you were planning to have a smoothie or a green drink every morning, now's the time to do it. If you were planning to organize your clothes closet and put your clothes away every day, now would be the time to do it. The idea is that habits are always an issue of energy, which means that there's a few elements to keep in mind. First, a habit, particularly, well, let's start with the bad habits. If you want to get rid of a bad habit, you're going to need to replace it with a habit of equal or greater value. You can't just pull it out and expect to be well, expect it to be easy, because what you've done is you've created an energetic vacuum where the habit used to be. So you need to replace it with something else. I'm no longer going to drink this. I'm now going to drink this. I'm no longer going to smoke this. I'm now going to do this. I used to always think this. You can do this with thoughts. I'm now going to think this. So replace bad or negative habits with positive or healthy ones. But the second thing is to remember that all the old habits have not only the energy of the habit itself, but the way life has been built around it to keep it in place. And whether you did that consciously or not, if it's a habit, that's happened. And that means that establishing a new habit can often be tricky because we don't have the life conditions to support us. I'm too busy. I have to leave too early. I have too many people demanding on me. So for a lot of people who are under quarantine or in self-quarantine or having a simplified life, what you're going to find is that this is exactly the moment to start new habits and put them in place. Of course, we know that neurological pathways have to be built over time. So every time you do that habit again and again and again, it will get easier. The last one, and then it's time for Q&A, so start sending the questions if you haven't yet, is set a schedule. Now, this doesn't mean that your day has to be rigid, and it doesn't mean that every day has to be the same, but it's extremely well supported by basic psychology that anything infinite will thrive with meaningful containment. So, I think I want to write that down. Anything infinite will thrive with meaningful containment. Hey, Susan, if you're listening, you got to email me that. Anything infinite will thrive with meaningful containment. What does that mean? Well, for example, a relationship. A relationship can be anything, and it can have all kinds of facets and dimensions. Could be a friendship, a romantic relationship, a parenting relationship. But to have some intentionality about expectations, about boundaries, about accountability, about your needs and their needs will help the relationship to thrive. How you spend your day. You have an endless, virtually endless number of things you can do. Yes, even in your own home. You can learn the lyrics to the Pirates of Penzance. Look that up. Don't do it, but look it up. You can listen to comedy sketches and memorize them and stand up and do them. You can do lip syncs. You can get cardboard boxes and make art out of them. You can learn to bake. There's so much you can do at home, but you're not going to do all of that. And when everything's a possibility, more often than not, it feels like nothing's a possibility. There's no meaningful containment. So create a schedule for yourself. 9 o'clock, spiritual practice. 10 o'clock, learning project. 11 o'clock, free time. Veg out, watch TV, whatever. 12:30, lunch, something like that. And it gives your mind a sense of what's coming, where to go, and how to make the most of whatever activity you're invested in. So I think that's probably enough for now. We have about 20 minutes now to dive into some Q&A. Hopefully that was helpful for you. And I'm now going to pull up my emails. So what's happening is you're writing into Facebook, but then if there's a question for me, Susan is going to rewrite it in an email to me. And of course I got distracted because someone sent me another copy of the Italians singing on their balcony together. So it's a great video. All right. So it looks like so far no one has anything to say. Everyone's good. No questions. No observations. Everyone's enlightened. This is what I was hoping for. I'm so grateful. Oh, no questions. That's really what it says. But someone shared something, and if you're not reading what other people have shared, I see something. Philip, good to see you, Philip, or good to see something from you. Philip ordered watercolor paints, brushes, and paper. And yes, I have to say, Philip, most people don't know this, but actually, I don't even know if I want to use the word, but some people once considered me an artist. Believe it or not, in my 20s, I sold paintings in galleries. And guess how much I paint these days? Like, is there such a thing as less than not at all? And of course, what are my reasons? Well, kids and work and tiredness. So we dug into the closet and the paintbrushes are out and the paints are out, and I just realized I probably now need to be responsible for showing you my art. At any rate, the point is this. Creative projects is a great use of time. And you don't have to be an artist to be creative. Whatever you've got. You got some tape and some paper. You can do collages. Collages are a great therapeutic outlet. So that means you take all the old magazines you have, you cut out pictures and explore themes. So you get a larger piece of paper. Doesn't even matter if you have art paper. You can just get a piece of photocopy paper or one of those notices you got from your health insurance. And then get some glue or tape and then pick a theme like stuck inside or springtime or a relationship you want to look at, and start cutting out pictures from magazines that communicate to you about that particular topic. Writing poetry. What else can we talk about? Let's see. Other forms of art. Singing. If you play an instrument, all those things are phenomenal ways to engage the non-thinking aspects of self. So I'm going to look again here and see if there are, oh, someone said some of us are still working on how to become present around that schedule, especially when it, I'm going to wait for Susan to translate this, that one. So I'm not quite sure where that message was, where that was going, but I'm going to respond to the bit that I saw, which is that one of the great practices that's coming up for people as we face this is the significance of learning to be comfortable when we are uncomfortable, which is another way of saying learning to accept and be okay with when things aren't necessarily easy. So for a lot of people, here it is. For a lot of people, setting new habits is not going to feel comfortable. For a lot of people, exercising is not going to feel comfortable. In fact, it's kind of sad, but for a lot of people, just going outside every day and developing a new relationship with nature is not comfortable. So allowing yourself to be uncomfortable as you do the things that feel in your heart, your mind, and your soul if you feel they are good for you at all levels of your being, then keep going. Just keep trying. Now, what Rachel was also bringing up, as I see now, is that what is it, how do we become present and honor all these good things when it feels like we are in survival mode? So this is a really important question, because a lot of people today feel like they have to be in survival mode, or they have been triggered unconsciously to be in survival mode. And the problem with that, of course, is that when we have that feeling, typically it's changing our physiology. So that means we're having more of a limbic response. Maybe the old reptilian brain is engaging that fight or flight or freeze. Of course, scientists and psychologists have discovered that fight, flight, or freeze is actually not the full spectrum of responses in the act of terror. There are actually 4. It is fight, freeze, flee, and the last one is buy toilet paper. I didn't know that, but it turns out that's true. So if you're finding yourself in fight, flight, freeze, or buy toilet paper, of course that was a joke, you want to start working both with your mind and your body. So with your body, breath work is going to helpful. Activities that get you into your frontal cortex. Now in acute moments of stress, that's going to be math, believe it or not. Drinking lots of water helps when you're having an acute survival response, a fear response. Maybe this is triggering trauma for you as well. So math, water, talking to someone about your feelings is going to be helpful, but also engaging those non-thinking, non-rational parts of yourself. And yes, art, creativity, music, movement, all those things are very helpful. In fact, there's quite a bit of research that's come out of trauma studies that show that when people are still connecting with or acting from a trauma response, color, movement, sharing stories of meaning, those are all extremely valuable and helpful. Creating ceremonies of release for things that are coming up relative to your survival issues can also be helpful. But in terms of working with your mind, I believe that the great opportunity here is to surround yourself with messages that this is not a survival moment. This is an elevation moment. This is absolutely an opportunity. We are being put in a position, no matter what it looks like on the outside in terms of stress and distress, we are being put in a position to reconsider what really matters. We are being put in a position to reclaim our relationship with our deeper self. And most significantly, we are being placed in the beautiful opportunity to realize that spirit, love, and wisdom are everywhere and abundant always. There is no question. And that is not some sort of BS idealistic approach to crisis. That is what many crisis survivors will tell you throughout the centuries. That very often when we have a heart that's open to spirit and open to learn, that trauma, crisis, and the survival mode will actually show us beautiful things, empowering things, and help connect us with the truth and truthfulness of who we are. So remind yourself affirmatively again and again and again, this is an opportunity to connect with what's ultimately real. Anything that can be taken away is not really me. Anything that can be taken away is not really me. And what you're left with is nature, stillness, connection, love, and let's face it, it doesn't matter what you've got or how busy or good your life was, that's all you had anyway. Anything that's been taken away from you now was just some lucky circumstance that you were in, because I can guarantee you whatever's been taken away from you, probably a good half of the world never had anyway, including toilet paper. So the next one is, how do you explain what is happening to young adults, such as teenagers? How do you start to get them to understand what's going on is happening to everyone? And this is for people with kids, or kids in college, or maybe your teachers with students. Well, this is a great question. Now, first of all, we have framed this for our kids. Well, obviously for our toddler, this isn't really much of a conversation because her life is relatively the same. And interestingly for her, with the exception of daycare and play dates, she's got everything she wants in spades. Time with the family, time at home. So little kids, personally, I don't see much value in commenting on it, but I'm talking about little kids. As kids get older, though, of course, we need to talk about social responsibility, and we need to talk about, or we can talk about, the opportunity to learn and grow from this. And whenever it comes to things that are potentially stressful or reactive, it's my personal feeling that you always keep it very simple. So you don't need to go into stories about all the people lining up to buy guns at Walmart, which to me is insane. No offense if that's you. You don't need to go into stories of suicide. You don't need to go into stories that are beyond their context or frame of reference, okay? So start with what's simple, what's real, and what's personal. And so the very simple thing is to say, we all get colds, and we all get flus, and right now in this moment there is a type of flu that's going around the world that is not going to be dangerous to most, but to a significant number of people who get it, it could be deadly. And that might not be you and me, you say to your kids, but because we care, because we want to be a part of a solution, we're going to make some dramatic changes in our life for a while, because the less people connect physically, the less people are exposed physically, the sooner this will pass and the less people will be affected. And so you can quickly transition from a fairly simple explanation that this is a cold, this is a virus, much like a flu that goes through every year, but it's just something different. And it's sad, it's tragic, it's scary, but it's going to pass. And the way it's going to pass quickly is if we do our part to be of service to others. So you connect the something that they understand to something that they can aspire to. Let's help. Let's be a part of this solution. Now, interestingly, for young people on TikTok and Snapchat and some of these other forums, we're finding that all kinds of celebrities, I've seen Jimmy Fallon and Will Smith and many others, helping explain why this is important. And they're doing funny videos about washing your hands and funny videos about social distancing. So you might explore that with them, or you might check it out and show it to them. But the other thing that's going to be really important, and most therapists would agree with this, is once you've shared the basic details, here's what it is, here's how we can help it move on quickly, here's how we can be a part of the solution, and isn't it amazing how connected we all are? And isn't this a really important chance to see that all of our actions are important, that we are all affecting each other even when we don't think so? Therapists would say, take that basic package of information, that basic communication, and then invite two things. Invite them to experience their feelings fully and normalize them, and invite them to discuss. So more important than teaching and talking at kids, you're going to share the basics. Here's what's going on. Here's what we can do about it. Here's what we can learn from it. And how are you feeling? And do you know you can talk to me anytime this comes up? Or is there someone you want to talk to about this? Or do you have questions? Do you want to ask me anything? And then you can return to it again and again. Particularly when kids are of school age, and I would say 17 and under for sure, it's really helpful to have a family meeting. And you could have a family meeting once a week. And that could be like an hour where you sit down and you say, okay, let's talk about what's going on with the family schedule. Let's talk about things you need us to do differently now that we're doing this. Let's talk about, oh, you want to renegotiate tablet time. You want to renegotiate time outside. It's a forum that lets children know, or young adults know, not only do I say I'm available to you, I'm demonstrating that I'm available to you. Because just saying to people, hey, if you have any questions, let me know, it's not the same as, okay, we've carved out some space once a week just to check in. Family check-in. All right, how's everyone doing with their chores? Do you need anything different? How's everyone doing with the schedule? Do you need anything different? How about mealtime? Who's going to start cooking this week? Who wants to team up and make dinner? Are we going to have taco night? Can we have Italian night? Are we going to have some theme to make it fun, right? There's all kinds of great things you can do. And then finally, is there anything you want to share about what's going on? How are you feeling about this? And then you go around the room one at a time, and they can say fine. They can say nothing. But you create the space and you create the opportunity. So great question, and lots of good stuff to come out of that. Let's see. More questions. So we got about 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can get a few more questions in. So we already talked about this, but it's being asked again and differently. How best to speak with those in our lives who are in panic mode and don't understand when we are using this time to slow down and grow? Thank you, Peter. This is a great question. I love that you are asking it. How do we distance ourselves from the negativity while keeping ourselves in a growth mode? Well, the first thing that's so wonderfully, subliminally insightful about this question is the idea of distancing ourselves from negativity. So this new practice of social distancing, okay, what I'm going to encourage you to do is consider this a metaphor of a new practice you're going to have for the rest of your life, which is to recognize that there is subtle energy around us always, health promoting and health diminishing. In all of our lives, we must each be mindful, thoughtful, and careful of what energy we're sharing with the world. In this case, it's a virus. But that can also be gossip, bad moods, criticism, judgment, control, cynicism, negativity. It doesn't mean you can't have your feelings. It doesn't mean you can't have bad days. But it means that you ask yourself, what is the energy you're perpetuating and feeding? When you are looking at struggles, are you looking at them from a learning perspective, or are you looking to blame and gain support for your own stuckness? So that's a first bit around a new kind of social distancing. And yes, I think that it's okay if you need space from certain people in your life who are really, for lack of a better word, catastrophizing or bringing you down, to let them know, you know, right now, I need a little more time for myself. Or, if you feel comfortable, you can even speak directly. Now, we take note from the Marshall Rosenberg nonviolent communication, and you don't blame them. You don't label them. You don't say, look, you are so negative and stressed out, I can't stand to be around you, because that's blame. And the truth is, even though it might be obvious what they're expressing, it might not be exactly true. It might not feel truthful to them. So what you might say is, you know, I've noticed that you're really focused on this virus. Or, you know, whenever we talk, you share a lot of stories about the worst side of this. And for me right now, I need that in smaller doses. And so if we can't change this dynamic between us, please don't take it personally, but I just need a little more time with myself and within myself to find the lessons. Now, I don't mind making this joke. You know, my wife in our home is the one who does all the research. She's always bringing me the updates. Here's the new statistics. Here's the new number of outbreaks. Here's the new number of deaths and so on. I'm grateful for that because I'm not as focused on that. But there are moments in my life, in our life together, like just before bed, where she might be giving me a new update. And with playfulness and love, I'll say, I love that I have my own CNN at home. But I got to tell you right now, I need to switch to the Comedy Network. So why don't you save your updates for the morning? That's it. And she gets it. She's fine with it. She doesn't need to do that. For the people that can't control themselves, then yes, you can practice your own new kind of social distancing that isn't about physical contact and viruses. It's about attitude and what I like to call junk moods. So we all know what it means to avoid junk foods. I think you're right on to avoid junk moods. The other thing that was brought up, though, and this is very, very important, so if you're tuning in, don't hang up just yet. When it comes to connecting with people who are in the panic mode, in the trauma or fight or flight response, few very, very important lessons to learn and remember. The first is that very few stress, survival, or trauma responses are isolated to the incident at hand. Trauma, like grief and other emotions, is contained in a general reservoir within, which means whatever filter people are experiencing this through, panic, stress, trauma, fear for the future, it will be connected to all and every similar experience they've had in their lives. If they've resolved them, if they've felt them through, if they've explored them and understand them, then this will be something they can manage now, and you will invite them to carry the wisdom of how did you manage it before into how you can manage it now. But the kinds of people that Peter's talking about sound like they are carrying old unresolved wounds and reactions into a present moment fear for safety and survival. The next thing, if and we're gonna finish with this question because this is a big one and our time is up. If you want to communicate with someone who is in distress about what's going on, the very basic formula for this, and this is well researched, Daniel Siegel is someone who I recommend you all read, like today. Daniel Siegel, you can thank me for 1,000 downloads. Mindsight is an old book of his that's still wonderful. He's got some amazing books on parenting and how to talk to kids, which does apply to teens. He's got some great books on talking to teens. So back to the teen question in John, look up Daniel Siegel and his work. But throughout, conventional psychological traditions and integrative holistic ones, very, very simple agreed upon principle, which is when someone is neurologically downstairs in the old brain, the fight or flight response, and you want to bring them upstairs into the frontal prefrontal cortex that's more, creative and dynamic and responsive, you've got to start where they are. You can't stand upstairs and say, why are you so negative? Why are you focusing on the bad things? Why aren't you like me? Let's enjoy life. Let's have fun. Let's have a theme party tonight. Let's do something creative with dinner. Let's try things we've never done before. You got to start where they are. So that means empathize. It means listen. It means ask questions. And that's hard for a lot of us because if you're afraid of that place inside yourself that also knows fear and panic, it's going to be hard to get close to it. You don't want to hear it. You don't want them to talk about why the world is ending and why it's a catastrophe and why it's all bad because you're afraid that place inside yourself will be activated. But if you can be mindful, then simply commit to asking questions, being present, and listening. When you give them the space to feel that it's okay to be downstairs, that you are with them, that you hear them, that you give their feelings permission, then you can start walking upstairs little bit by little bit. And you go into asking questions, sharing something about yourself, inviting a new perspective. And if it's a very complex situation, then you keep the invitations simple. Well, I wonder if, one thing, right? I wonder if just for this week, we don't know what's going to happen next week. What if just this week we make a commitment to, and then you offer something, a daily meeting, art, writing, connecting with family. I mean, whatever it is you want them to consider, invite simple steps. And then, by experience, let them feel that it's safe to go upstairs from downstairs, up into the creative, optimistic perspective, and away from this fearful, constricting perspective. Anyway, there is so much to talk about, but we're going to stop now because an hour-long online video is just about all anyone could possibly stomach if they're going to follow up with this later. But I do encourage you, once this is finished and then recorded and posted back on Facebook, you can go back to the parts you liked, and please share it, because at the Althea Center we rely on donations. So if you're out there and you're listening and you want to make a donation for this class, we would love it. Our doors are effectively closed, and as a growing community that lives month to month, every donation helps, but also every viewer helps. Every person that we can help helps us. The stronger we can be as a community, the stronger our future will be together. So I'm going to encourage you to please share this. We are meeting Sunday, so whoever is listening to this coming Sunday, whatever Sunday that is, at 10:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m. U.S. Mountain Time, I will be doing a meditation, a prayer, readings, and a message with just a few Q&A at the end. That will also be an hour. And probably sometime soon we will also develop an online class or course, a Zoom class, where we can actually see each other. I do have some things that I'm doing personally through my own website. You can go to jonathanellerby.com. But today we are here with the Althea community, and let us celebrate the Althea community, reach out to each other, send emails, make phone calls, let people you're thinking about know you're thinking about them, even if it's just a little message. So with that, we're going to close with a poem, and we're going to close with a little reflection. So, taking a breath, letting your eyes close. Again, long extended exhale. Slow inhale. Feeling yourself returning to stillness. Letting all the busyness of mind and all that's going on in the world just wait for a moment as you breathe into quietness. As you feel the presence of all those listening with you now and through the recording, all the millions of people who are praying not only for an end to this situation, but for the blossoming of love and wisdom, community, connection, kindness, respect for each other and our natural world. Feel that you are a part of this worldwide wake-up, which is as amazing, as beautiful, and as powerful as it is scary. We can make this a historic event in human history. And more than ever, it begins at home. And in this fearless spirit of loving and learning, let's read Rainer Maria Rilke, Go to the Limits of Your Longing. God speaks to each of us as God makes us, and then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words you will dimly hear. You sent out beyond your recall. Go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Now, give me your hand. And so with that, I want to thank you all for listening, for sharing this, for staying connected to the Althea Center. For those of you that made donations, thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's continue this energy. Let's continue this movement. It is hard. It is difficult. The world is going through a crisis, but there is no question that there is an extraordinary opportunity before us, and it begins at home. It begins with you. Thank you very much, and I'm going to shut you off now.